Hey guys, welcome to the show. Miss Honoree, how are you doing today?
Fabulous. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I'm really excited about today because we get to talk about coaching. And you and I nerded out quite a
Yeah,
bit on the last episode, but this is because this is
yeah.
something that we really enjoy, right?
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
and after we talked last time, I had this. So if you haven't checked out the last episode, guys, go check it out. It's posted here on the YouTube channel, and then you can find it on the podcast as well. But make sure you guys check out that episode because it'll give you a little bit of context into what we're discussing today. But the point of those was that there was a way to monetize your expertise through all these different ways, and we had covered the three-legged stool with the book, course, and workbook combination of those three
Yeah.
items. And then we talked about growth into other areas, coaching being one of the areas that we're most passionate
Right.
about. um, After we had that conversation, I had this thought about what if I was what if I had never been a coach, right? And I just was walking into this as a former consultant or as an existing
Yeah.
consultant. And I keep hearing about there's a difference between consulting and coaching. Or if I'm just a subject matter expert that's written a book or published a course, and I'm looking at
Right.
using coaching as a supplement or a parallel product to those
Yeah.
things, what does that look like? So I think that starting out this conversation with the difference between consulting and coaching might be a good idea. And then how would you
Sure.
recommend starting the business of coaching as an additional income stream?
Awesome. We can tackle those two things. No problem. So let's start with the difference between consulting and coaching. I'm just going to use a bicycle as an analogy, right? We've
Mhm.
all ridden a bicycle, or we at least know what a bicycle is, right? And so if you're a consultant, you you say to your client, this is a bicycle and this is how you ride it. And you give them step by step instructions. If you're a coach, you start with, do you have a bicycle? Do you know what a bicycle is? How do you think you should ride the bicycle? Do you have any resources for learning how to ride the bicycle? Do you know anyone who's ever ridden a bicycle? Can you get someone to show you a bicycle? Is there a manual about the bicycle? All of that to say is coaching is a really great question. The client has the answers and you're getting the answers out of your client. Now there are different types of coaching. There's directive coaching, which is I know how to ride a bicycle, so I'm just going to like move this along a little bit so we're not coaching until 2075. There's non-directive coaching, which is you're just asking questions because you don't have any knowledge. You don't have bicycles in your land, wherever that land is. And so you don't even know what they're talking about. That is helpful if you are coaching someone who is in a field that you are not in. So when I was doing executive and business coaching, I worked with attorneys, bankers, investment bankers, CPAs, insurance providers, et cetera, et cetera. And I have not been, nor will I ever be any of those things, but there are fundamentals that I was able to coach them on specifically. And I also made it my business to learn a bit about their business, but I did not go to law school or banking school or investment banking school or CPA school or any of those things, right? Because there are ways that you can affect positively your clients without, really getting into the weeds. Does that answer the question between consulting and coaching? Do you
Yeah,
understand? I need
yeah,
to.
it does. Because I started out as a consultant, and was hired for my basically my subject matter expertise, right? Like we need someone that is a technical expert in this area to guide us on this particular area. And I like that you make the distinction between that and coaching, whereas you could take all of the great leadership, mentorship, consulting skill sets and apply them in different ways to other people's worlds outside of that technical discipline or that specific area of study or application or whatever. So for me, like I work with, just like you, when it comes to coaching, I coach people that don't traditionally do what I did for a living, right? The people I'm helping create courses, they're experts in like dealing with cancer diagnoses or Medicare, right? Or things that I just don't
Right.
have any experience in. But my expertise in business and in courses and all those things helps me help them in doing more than just
Yeah.
stand-up courses, right? It's like you and I know how to guide that
Yeah.
person through integrating those products into their business and then developing better business practices based on the big picture. And I think that that's a really big
Yeah.
difference between that and consulting, where it's consulting, they would just hire me to like build a course for them or teach them exactly how to build a course, and that would be it. So it's funny because I
Exactly.
actually had a quote, another coach hire me one time to help him with his courses. And then I was coaching him and he said, I don't need a coach. And I said, I don't think you understand what a
Oh,
coach is, even though he was a coach, because he really needed a coach more than he needed a consultant. So,
yeah. Yeah. And I just want to say one other thing that occurs to me.
hmm,
Sometimes not having knowledge of someone's profession is actually helpful as a coach because you ask interesting questions
yeah.
and insightful questions and basic questions that sometimes are not so basic. And so a lot of times, and I think this is where intuition comes into play of being a coach. And I think good coaches have a heightened sense of intuition and develop that sense of intuition. There were many times I worked with engineers, right? I'm not an engineer. I worked with an engineering firm. I don't know anything about engineering. Like they have phones on their desk. I don't know why. Right. Right. I know you know because you're an engineer, but I had no knowledge of it whatsoever. And yet I was still able to ask effective questions. And sometimes the questions would have them go, would never thought of it that way. That's exactly perfect and what we need to do. And we've never thought of it that way because they're too close to it. They're too like you need a coach sometimes because I don't have any I don't have a dog in the fight, right? It's like you perform or you don't perform. I'm paid to play. I showed up, I'm good, right?
Hmm.
So like other than that, like we don't have any outcome. The only outcome we have is for our clients.
Right.
And so, but sometimes our clients are too close to what they're doing to really see how they're getting in their own way or an obvious answer. And I hear that a lot. People go, I already know what to do. I just need to do it. And it's like, but are you going to do it without accountability? Are you going to do it without
Mm.
someone going, did you do it? Did you? Did you? I don't think you did. I'm pretty sure you didn't. Pretty
Yeah.
sure you're on Facebook posting every 10 minutes about being positive and getting your act together, but I don't see them results. I'm just saying, okay, I'll call you next Tuesday. I'm like
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog. It's like, it's none of my business, but I'll be over here drinking my tea, right?
Yeah. And I, I hired a coach knowing like I hired a sales coach, Lisbeth Halen, who's just amazing. And but I needed someone that fit my personality as an engineer to help me learn sales. But she was obviously not an engineer, so she didn't need to be an expert in like the products I sold, even though she predominantly
Right.
worked with engineers. And
Interesting.
yeah, she worked with like technical experts in like technical fields. That was kind of like her brand of entrepreneur that she was
hmm
serving at that
hmm
time. Although she could serve anybody with her sales expertise, she was really good, and she grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Like she'd been an entrepreneur since day one. So I needed someone that could speak entrepreneur and business sales as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur more than I needed someone to
Yeah.
speak engineering. And she could get me to think about my own products, which she had no experience with, in a way that I just couldn't. Because they have
Yeah.
different perspective, right? And I think that's one of the things that has been really helpful with having you as a mentor and you coaching me in my own business is that you know you've seen and thought about things in ways that I don't. Even though we're in some ways working in very similar fields, in other ways we work in
Yeah.
different fields. So
Right.
very
Right.
important distinction. I appreciate you explaining that. So if you're just starting out, like I fell into coaching quite naturally because it's just
A
I
lot of
think
people do.
yeah, I think it was just more of fit
I
my
did as well.
personality, you know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so much. I was like, I need to start working with people in other areas and helping them in ways that maybe they weren't expecting, but they were looking for the outcomes I could deliver for them. Um,
Right.
but for someone that hasn't already taken that step, you know, how do you view that leap into coaching?
Oh, so I did it the same way that you did. And I want to just compliment you for a second on how gracious your coaching style is. When you are coaching me, I will think to myself, hey, genius, right? You should be doing it this way, but you are never like that. You're very much like, hey, why don't we try it this way? Or have you ever considered trying it this way? Which is very helpful. It is a beautiful way. And this is just a lesson for someone who wants to become a coach or wants to become a better coach is your clients will want to please you. They will not want to disappoint you. And that is not the nature of your relationship. But nevertheless, I've never had a client who didn't start a conversation with, oh, don't be upset with me, but I didn't. Or alternatively, coach, you would be so proud of me. Right. And what that says to me is, I didn't want to disappoint you, but I feel like I'm gonna because I didn't do that thing that we committed that I was going to do. Or I did that thing that we committed to me doing and I did it. And you're going to be so proud of me. I got that end result. And so your delivery of your feedback and your suggestions is lovely and helpful. And
Oh,
so when you're working with someone, try to communicate with them in a way that does not make them feel bad or ineffective, but allows them to get a win and to feel good about themselves. So we'll just set that aside.
thank you.
I just wanted to point that out because you're really masterful at that. And I'm not sure how you got there, but you're really masterful at it. It's awesome. It's awesome as someone that you work with closely,
Mm.
right? Because I'm sure you could go, hey, Honoree, it's just a surprise you've gotten as far as you've gotten because you're doing it wrong. Do it this way? Why are you working so hard? Or why don't you try something different? Anyway, nevertheless, um, if
You need to
someone
stop.
wants to become a coach, if someone wants to become a coach, um, I want to point out now something that I've noticed very recently that was not around when I was originally coaching. When I was first becoming a coach, there was something called uh, gosh, what was it? Coach U. I'm not even sure if Coach U is still around.
Mm.
Coach U is where my coach got her education, and she actually sent me her education. She actually put her curriculum in a box
Oh,
and sent it to me. I wasn't thinking of necessarily becoming a professional coach at the time. I'm just a crazy learner. And she was like, you're doing this thing. You should try doing this thing, which is coaching. And I was like, okay, sure. And then I went like deep into the weeds. I listened to every cassette. I still have my original journals from where I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to all the things, right? Nerd alert. And then found my passion from there. But I didn't go to Coach U, and that is a different conversation. But
mm.
now, all of that to say, what I have noticed is that now coaching is a thing. Whereas coaching, when I first started, when the earth was cooling and, I walked in snow both ways uphill, um, was something I had to explain to people. I'm like, I'm a business coach. And they're like, what's a coach? And I'm like, did you play Little League when you were a kid? Or did you, were you on the basketball team or whatever? Well, you had a coach. Well, that's what I do for your business. Oh, okay, that makes sense. That sounds logical. Let me try that. Now everybody knows that they're life coaches, spiritual coaches, business coaches, executive coaches, nutrition coaches, et cetera, et cetera. There are lots of different kinds of coaches. And that is a pretty well accepted profession and vernacular. Although life coaches seem to get thrown under the bus, even in like movies and television. It's like, oh, now she's a life coach. Okay, whatever. However, it is now an actual recognized profession that a lot of people do and they take it seriously. So much so that now the designation that you really want to have is through something called ICF, the International Coaching Federation. So when I was first starting, I think that the ICF was around, but it certainly wasn't the gold standard or the stamp of approval.
Mm.
Now you can get your ICF certification through colleges and universities, through ICF directly. I think I would most definitely, if I were starting over today, I would look for what is the gold standard, and then I would go do that.
Right.
I would want the thing that would make it easy for someone to say you're hired. Now, I'm not going to go back and do that because I more than meet their criteria. And I think I have done enough independent study. And no one ever asked me what my credentials are. But that's because I've been doing it for a really long time and I have a track record. If
Mm.
you're just getting started, go ahead and put yourself through the paces of getting your education. Get your formal education, but I also want to encourage you to get your informal education.
Mm.
I want you to read books on coaching, like a book which is now titled The 28 Laws of Attraction, used
Right.
to be titled The Portable Coach. And that was my guide when I first started. That was my checklist, as I mentioned before. It's like, over respond, check, have a super reserve in every area, check, 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 right? So like I had my checklist and I went through that book to be the most effective coach that I could be. So I went through the education that my coach had sent me, weeks and weeks of audio cassette tapes. Hello, aging myself, but also There were CDs back then. Hers was just on cassette. I'm just
Hey,
saying.
cassette tapes. So
Saying it
you
wasn't
can
that long ago.
make some bank now selling cassette tapes. I don't
That's
want
right. That's right. I probably still have some somewhere.
to.
Um, Nevertheless, like I went ahead and gave myself the education because that's how I'm wired. But now, we have John Hope in our mastermind group, and he is a 36-year retired colonel from the Army who went to West Point, and he went and got his ICF certification because I was like, John, I don't know that you need to do that. And he's like, no, I need to do that now because companies ask me if I'm ICF certified, if I'm ICF accredited. And there's another coach who's a previous EBMer, Alyssa Dare Nelson, and she just got her ICF accreditation, and she's been a business coach for a very long time. So you just want to go and look at what are the credentials that you need to have in order to work with the clients that you want to have. That's the very first thing. The second thing would be you want to have a coach. You need to have a coach. You
Yep.
want to have someone who is not months ahead of you, but who is years or decades ahead of you. I think it's very important that you have someone who has walked the path that you want to walk, and they can tell you at mile 3 there's a rattlesnake. At mile 10, this is what's going to happen. Here's how to prepare for this. Here's how to avoid this pain and suffering. Here's how to get the most out of this opportunity that you have. Here's how to market your coaching practice. Here's how to engage with your clients. Here's how to set boundaries with your clients. Here's how to get payment out of your clients. All of the things that are coaching related and coaching business related. Having a coach who has built what you want to build is very helpful because they can compress your learning and education into a fraction of what it would cost you to learn on your own. Just ask me, I will tell you, because there weren't very many people who had done what I was trying to do back when I was trying to do it.
Mm.
But I had coaches. I went and found the people that I could uncover and hired them. Like, here, I don't want to figure this out. I want a recipe. I want a roadmap. Give it to me. So
Right.
pay any amount of money to get the results that you want to get because you think that you're paying for it, but what you're really doing is investing in your education. And that when you invest in something, you expect a return on that investment, right? When you spend money, it's gone. But when you invest money, it comes back to you multiplied.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love all of that. And in particular, I love the emphasis you're putting on self-education.
Yeah.
To me, certification programs in many ways are self-education because it's not like some part of some formal process that you're automatically inheriting, like going to school,
Right.
for example, right?
Right.
You don't have to do it, but you should do it, and you're doing it, and that's your decision. And I think that's a great thing. And I don't have an ICF certification either, because much like you, it was just a different situation when I was getting
Yeah.
into coaching. But with the way it currently rolls, and my equivalency would be my PMP, right? My project management
Yeah.
professional certification. I
Yeah.
used to teach those classes, how to get ready for that exam, how to prep for that exam.
Right. Right.
People
Yeah.
would come in and say, I've already been managing projects for 15 years. Why do I need a certification? And I would tell them, you're going to be so much better off when you have this because of the
Yeah.
education and the recognition. And it really tells people that you
Right.
speak the right language
Yes.
and you have the right tools in your toolbox at a minimum. It doesn't mean it's your
Yeah.
ceiling. It means it's your floor, it's your baseline. So
Yep.
again, like you, I highly encourage people to look at that. And then the second piece is, I think that your point about self-educating through multiple resources is something that you absolutely cannot ignore when you get into coaching, because it's so
Yeah.
multifaceted that if you only get your coaching experience or education in one place, you will not be as good a coach as you could be. And
Right.
like when I met you, I was like, hey, you're like awesome coach, been coaching way longer than I have. Again, 28 laws, right? Like, what book
Yeah.
are would you, if you had one book to
Yep.
recommend and that was the one you handed me, like, hey, this is the one you should go
Yep.
pick up. I did not have that book before that point. If I hadn't taken the initiative to ask you for your references, your guides,
Right.
your experience, I never would have had that book, and it's fantastic. And so as a coach, I think it's a lifelong learning commitment because you
Yes.
can never stop growing as a coach. And if you look at professional
Right.
sports,
Right. You have
it's
to be ahead. You've
yeah,
got to be ahead. You
yeah,
have to be a player coach, right?
yeah,
Like coaches are on the sidelines, but player coaches are on the sidelines. And then when the game isn't on, when they're not coaching, they're on the field.
Yeah.
Right. So I still have my stack of books that I'm reading. I still have my education because I can't continue to be a good, effective coach, in my opinion, right? I'm just one person. You seem to be agreeing with this also, but
Yep.
I think it's really important that people understand um, that if they want to be excellent at what they do and not just phone it in, right?
Yep.
You've got to have that time dedicated to yourself and be working on moving yourself forward because you want to stay ahead. Like if you're coaching somebody, right? You want to be ahead of them. So by the time they get to where you are, you're ahead of them even still.
I did want to ask you to address one last point on this particular topic, and that is, let's say you go out and you get certified and you get experience as a coach, and you're now working in coaching. It's like, great, we're out here, boots are on the ground, work is getting done. I've I'm very interested in your perspective on, now that you're in the mix and you're out there doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
um, how how does this relate to the other things that you do, right? So like, for example, I specialize in training, so I have a natural tendency to incorporate courses into my coaching
Yep.
program. You're
Yep.
like a renowned author, and so you are no doubt, integrating your written work into your
Of
coaching
course.
practice. So can you talk a little bit about what that means for like a creative entrepreneur, and what, kind of just open that one up a little bit?
Are you wanting me to talk about what books I'm recommending, or are you wanting me to talk about how someone could use having a book as a coach?
Yeah. So like, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. So you're,
Okay.
you're, you're the best person to talk to about how to use your, integrate your book into your coaching practice. So
Yes. So specifically, no, just because there are two different ways to come at that, right?
yes,
Like,
yes.
am I using books? Am I recommending books to my clients if they're readers?
Mhm.
But if someone has a book, or as a coach, we talked about the three-legged stool. I think as a coach, or insert any other income stream here, right? Course provider, trainer, speaker, etc. Having a book that is um, an explanation of your methodology is also helpful,
Mhm.
as both a companion tool to your coaching and a lead magnet for people to come to you as a coach because they might discover you through the book. And I'll give my example of that. My first example of that was I developed a coaching program called the STMA 100-day coaching program. And I created it for myself. And then I realized one day that I was selling time very expensively to coaching clients, but there was no tangible, right? If you give me $5, you want me to give you this bottle of Fuji water, right? But if I was just like, you're going to give me $5, it's going to be amazing. And be like, well, what's going to be amazing? How is it going to be amazing? How am I going to know it's going to be amazing? What am I going to get for that $5? I need something tangible. So my program that I developed for myself, I cemented it and made it into something that I could share with someone as a coaching client, knowing that it was not in stone. It was more a framework. Now, I didn't really say that it was a framework because people want something tangible and they want to know what their outcome is going to be. But anyone who's worked as a coach for more than 10 minutes is going to recognize that sometimes what people say they're coming to you for is not what they're coming to you for.
Right.
And so just because in session 2, it says we're going to talk about time management, does not mean that session 2 is going to be about time management. It could be about relationship boundaries. It could be about conversations with clients. It could be generating clients. It could be any number of things. So I gave the sessions, each of them, a direction, but I was always willing to change course when necessary, right? That's what a good
Right.
coach does. A good coach meets their client where they are. I would always come to a coaching session with an idea of what I would come to the coaching session for the client, right? I would have an idea in mind of what we were going to talk about. And I was always ready. If they're like, okay, coach, what's on our agenda? I would be like, here's what's on our agenda.
Mm.
But most of the time they would show up and say, oh, I'm so glad we're having our conversation because we need to talk through this, right? So I put together my coaching program. It was 100 days. It was 8 sessions. Those conveniently line up every 2 weeks, day 1, day 100. So we would meet every other week, same day, same time, give or take, and we would have those 100 days of coaching. And my promise to them, the promise of the program was that in those 100 days, they would achieve or make measurable progress toward three goals, two business and one personal. I did find that after I had created that program, that sometimes a client would show up and they would be like, okay, now why are we doing this? And I felt a little like Mr. Miyagi. I was like, do you want to spend your time with me explaining to you my methodology, or do you want to spend your time learning
Yeah.
and moving the ball forward? Right. I was like, how do I make it so that on their own time they can understand my methodology without us having to use their time for me to talk about it? It seemed like it was a waste of opportunity, a waste of money, a waste of time. I didn't like that. I don't like to waste money or time. And so I was concerned about and committed to providing the education and information that they wanted without using their valuable time that they were paying for. I would much rather get into something else with them and help them to make a distinction or to make further progress, right?
Right.
So I decided to write the companion book for the STMA. And at the time, I was in a mastermind group, a peer mastermind, and I wrote this manuscript and I gave it to the 6 people in my mastermind, and they all said, Honoree, this could be a book. You need to publish this. And I was like, no, 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 this is just a companion for this program. And they were like, no, 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 this is great information that people, even if they don't work with you, would benefit from having. And so that's how Vision to Reality came to be,
Oh,
because I was writing that as a companion guide. And the only thing they said was, you need to switch chapter 2 with chapter 7 or something like that. There were 2 chapters that were on
right.
opposite sides of the book. And so I did that. And so I published Vision to Reality, and it did exactly what now I would recommend a coach to do, is to write a book that is based on the methodology of what they're teaching their clients. What's the essence of the work that they do with their clients? So my tagline when I was coaching was, I'm going to double your income and triple your time off. I'm going to help you to be more effective and more efficient. I'm going to help you to attract business instead of having to go find it all the time. Like, you could knock on 100 doors and get one client, but what if you never had to knock on another door?
Right.
What if all of your business could be by referral? And what if you could just, when you talk to someone, they were already ready to hire you? And so most of the time they would hire you. Sometimes they wouldn't, but that seems more fun. That means you have more time off to do the things that you enjoy, to pursue family, friends, hobbies, things like that. And so Vision to Reality actually became a published book and is still one of my best-selling books. It's one of the more better selling books. English is my first language. It sells so good.
I write and I speak in English.
I write and I speak in English. Hello. Yeah. Double threat. So it actually brought people to me, so much so that I was full and I created a digital version. Now, I don't do that type of coaching anymore. That coaching program was initially a one-on-one coaching program. And then I did it as a small group coaching program. And then I did it as a large public group coaching program. And then I did it as a large and small internal corporate group coaching program. And then I did it as a digital program, which is still available today. And it's, now it's 7 years old. And I still have people buy it and say, I really love this. This is so helpful, what you have put together. And so writing that book, which tells people what you're about, will help them to understand what you're about. And it will also help people who don't know you understand what you're about as a coach and bring that business to you.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just talking to a client yesterday about this same approach with their course. They're a coach, and I said, use your online course to deliver your fundamentals to your client. And then between sessions, they review your fundamentals, they learn your framework, they learn your methods, all the things.
Yeah.
And then when you come,
and then you get to work. Yeah. Then
right.
When you're together, you're just working. Yeah.
And you can spend a very small amount of time just briefly covering the high points of those fundamentals when you meet. And then you jump right into action. And people love spending that time in action with their coach rather than being taught. Then they can feel 100%. The clock ticking when it's all teaching, right? It's like
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And they're watching that clock go, right? Yep. And as a coach, I never liked watching the clock. And so I really wanted to make sure that every minute, I used to do a 50-minute hour. Mm-hmm. Those were my coaching sessions, right? It's like, we have 50 minutes. And in those 50 minutes, we're going to go from how are you to what are you committed to doing? and it goes by so fast.
Right.
It's just
And then,
instantaneous how quickly the sessions go by.
right. And then the second adaptation of that is to so put those fundamentals in your coursework between your coaching sessions. And then when you do have your coaching session, let's say it's a 2-hour block, which is what I usually recommend for people that have like a very thorough program, maybe a 1-hour block for a less thorough program, but
Yeah.
take a first chunk of that live time together, and you go further than the curriculum with teaching an advanced lesson. Now that you
Right.
understand those fundamentals,
Right.
let's talk live about like
That's right.
this next layer, this deeper layer that's not necessarily in the curriculum. That's all the fundamental baseline stuff.
Yep.
In the live sessions, we go deeper in a teacher-learner relationship, and then we flip over to coaching you through performance for the remainder of the session. That's another one. And I've actually turned the whole thing around before. This is interesting for people that work in certain like disciplines of certain depth, and I'll explain it, and you'll be like, oh yeah, of course. Where you spend the live time talking about the fundamentals because they really need the coaching during the fundamentals part.
Yes. Yes.
And you're like, oh, by the way, over the next week, watch these videos which take it further. Like once you've instilled the fundamentals and you've been able to get feedback from them that they get it and that they're on the right track, now they're free to learn. Like, but they can't really learn well without that one-to-one time together instructing them on the fundamentals. So that's like the inverse of the first model. But it's really effective on like complex things where maybe you're introducing a very complex topic for the very first time and you need that step-by-step feedback in those first few lessons, as I like to do live. But anyways.
Well, and nothing is, I don't ingest anything the first time.
Right. Right.
Right. I mean, repetition is the mother of skill. It's why I read some books over and over and over and over again. And I swear I've never read them before when I read them. And I'm like, I highlighted it. This was me, but I don't remember it. Right. It's like they're not going to grasp it as quickly as you just giving it to them.
And as comfortably. I mean, I had a professor in my doctorate. It's like in the last year, like, did you ever take classes? So you're all excited. You're never gonna have to sit through another class again. And this dude was teaching us like this really advanced, like modeling and simulation stuff. And he was just effortless. And he would explain it to you, and you're like, of course, that's how it works.
Of course.
Of course. And then like literally minutes after this 4 hours you spent easily going through everything together, you try to break through the first 2 steps by yourself and you're hit a stone wall right away.
You're like, nope.
It's
nothing.
just so deep, right? You needed that. You needed that coach to literally be walking you through everything because it's such a complex topic. Outside of like the really complex, like engineering, sciences, medical, those types of fields where that's really applicable for learning, I find the same thing, and this surprised me about being a coach. I found the same challenge when it came to mindset and emotional elements of your business. You need to step by step with your coach through those. And that caught me by surprise. Because it just doesn't sound hard, but it's so hard for some people. So.
It's so hard for some people. And it is, there's decision zero is you have to decide that you want to be, someone who has a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, because some people are like, I'm just fine the way I am. Thank you very much and have a nice day. And what got you here isn't going to get you there. So you've got to shift into a growth mindset. And that means right. And so having someone that's just going to say, we're going to go from here to here, but you know what? We're going to go from here to here to here to here. And sometimes you can take that jump. Sometimes you can't. And you've got to have someone who's really good at understanding, are you ready for that? How do you get ready for that? How do you make it?
Yeah.
And then also there's a little bit of, I had to learn the difference between Lucas, stop whining and move, right? If I said that to some people, they would curl up in the fetal position. They would be like, oh, she's upset with me. She can't talk to me like that. Other people, I would be like, okay, Lucas, now, so last time we talked about this, how are you feeling about that? Okay, would you be comfortable if we talked about doing the next thing? And you have to know how different people are wired.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting present. I mean, some people I was just like, listen, if you, my ears are bleeding, the whining is so loud, like, stop it. Right? Don't make me come over there. I will cut you, right? But other people, if you talk to them like that, their personalities are such that would really upset them. and then they
Mhm.
wouldn't be able to progress. And so also a great coach studies human behavior, right? I'm a student of human behavior. I freaking love it. I have read or done or been certified in all of the, I haven't been certified in strengths finders, but I've had strengths finders done. I was certified in DISC at one point, PIAV, the color code, like there's so many. And I'm like, yeah, give me another one, hit me again, right? So so if that's your jam and you want to be really good at it at your job, right? Your coaching would be your job. Then educating yourself on people and how people are wired and how to motivate different people at different times is also helpful, because then all those little skills come in handy in other ways in other places.
Yeah.
P.S. You can't coach your spouse. Just saying.
No, you can't. No, you cannot. My wife reminds me of that every time we
Nope.
work out. She's like, "You go over there, I'll be over here."
Yeah. Nope. Not listening.
I'm like,
La,
"Tammy,
la,
I was
la,
a
la.
personal trainer. People paid me a lot of money to train them." She's
Yeah.
like,
Nope.
I will pay you to leave."
Yeah. Nice. I will pay you to leave. Here is your
Over there.
$100. Go over there. Yep. Perfect. Yeah.
Oh man. Well,
Yeah.
we could unpack coaching for days because it
I think
obviously,
so.
like we said,
I
it's
think
something we're
so.
both passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But are there any last points you'd like to make before we close the episode up?
No, I think we've done quite a bit of unpacking for this
Mhm.
episode, but I would be curious if someone wants to leave a comment or send us a message and let us know if there's another aspect of coaching, or if what we discussed today opened up, yet another question or set of questions. We'd be happy to come back and answer those in a future
Absolutely. And
episode.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we would love to be able to interact with you guys on these topics in the comments. So make sure you leave
Yep.
comments below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Put the podcast on repeat, do what you got to do. But we
Yeah.
love talking about these topics because they
Yeah.
mean something to people. It's not just
Yes.
because it's something we like to nerd out on. This is like life-changing stuff for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs who
Yes.
are kind of, they don't have the big bench strength of a team to lean on, and they don't have
Yeah.
a board of directors or whatever
Right.
advisors.
I'm not going down the hall to talk to a colleague, right? Like that is not, I mean, I might go out on the porch, but there's no one out there, right? Like
Yeah,
you are an island. And so you've got to have your bench of people that you assemble in a different way.
right.
So we're
And
happy
that's
to talk with you and help you.
right. Yeah, and that's essentially what we've created with the EBMC, with the Empire Builders Masterclass, is this area where you can go and you can get all this different expertise from these different areas of solo
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. And you've got bench strength, you've got resources, you've got
Yeah.
mentors, you've got resources. So just
Yep.
stay with us, guys. All right.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Miss Honoree, thank you so much.
Always thank you as well, Lucas. This is so fun. Thanks so much for making this happen.
Yes, ma'am. All right. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.